go from there. Okay. As we have organized the session in 2 hours, we're going to be tight because there's always a passion to share within culture. I wanted also to go beyond. You'll find a lot of information. It yet has to be updated from 2017. We did a project on crowdfunding for culture specifically, and there's maps of different platforms and initiative, plus a full report on crowdfunding. So it will expand not just what we say today, which is pretends to have a material updated and show you examples that you could reflect on. Okay, and we will take it from there. My name is Mauricio O'Brien. I'm originally from Mallorca. My mom is Irish, my dad's Spanish. That's why it's the funny mixture. So it's peculiar. And Elisa with me. If you want to introduce yourself, also taking advantage that they will be with you later on, but maybe it's the chance.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Elisa Patriarca, and I will follow you during the last 3 appointments after this session. And of course, I think that we will have time to get to know each other a little bit more in deep, and also discuss about all the doubts that you could have after these 2 hours of training, because of course we will try to cover as much as possible regarding crowdfunding for cultural sector, but you know, the questions are always the ones that came out after the training. So
yeah, because what we presented on today is, as we said, open that Pandora box. Your knowledge on crowdfunding, what we do on collecting those ideas, more participatory culture, and this probably is where I'm going to focus my session on how to open also those alliances with organizations and show you examples that could be hopefully interesting to see how they developed. Okay. For there, nevertheless, I'm going to share my screen and we take it from there. There we go. You see my screen okay?
Yes, Mauricio.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. As I said, I'm going to focus on the part of that participatory culture, understanding that we as cultural managers, promoters of different projects, if we are working in public or private entities that are focused in culture, how could we say bring in and build bridges with that participation from the citizenship, from the people that is working in your organization, whatever you may have in mind, just to start from there. A very brief introduction. We're, Elisa and myself are from the European Crowdfunding Network. We are based in Brussels. We are a nonprofit organization that works as a professional network for the crowdfunding platforms, and we sort of represent the industry of crowdfunding. From there, how do we have organized this session? Our main purpose, as we said, is to highlight those projects, ideas that you already have there fiddling in your mind, and which is the crowdfunding potential for them, remarking especially the benefits of working with a crowd, working with a community, that abstract idea of what we understand as a crowd, identifying a set of platforms. We've arranged a few for you to look at and to be more sort of question which projects have they supported, which projects have been successful, what are the insights that you could do with that initial benchmarking, okay, to see not just in Italy, but also in Europe, which other projects are similar and could be connected to what you may have in mind. And obviously there will be a part in which we want to maximize the impact of your communication, because it's crucial when we're doing this fundraising exercise. Crowdfunding campaign may last a month, 2 months, 3 months, but it's a direct action within the communication side. Okay, how to open up to that general public and especially get some funds back, which is the intent. Sometimes we are talking about innovative ways of funding. We may think that crowdfunding has been, recently sort of launched, or people are there. But we go back in history, and crowdfunding is nothing new. This is where, that collective effort of financing a project from a common good, very analog, very old style, and it always has been there. It was a young Joseph Pulitzer at the time that there was a rat race to get the actual Statue of Liberty in America, and that rat race in between different actual states in the eastern coast of America. And at the time, the governor itself, he did, let's put it clear and simple. He didn't bother too much in finding the funding. But Joseph Pulitzer did do an exercise of financing the pedestal that we would take the actual crowdfunding, the actual Statue of Liberty in place. And he did it with the small action of how could we finance little by little and add up for that common good. As you see, this is a flyer that was it was from the time. What's the difference in between this sort of action for fundraising and what we will be discussing just now? We'll emphasize especially that we've gone digital. Now the tools that we have and the efforts and the communication that we do, and as a webinar just like this, is done through the internet, through the platforms, through the digital tools that we have available to communicate properly. Same way happens with funding. Funding brings in part of that sharing economy thing. How could we access services through platforms, through the internet, and through that process of crowdsourcing some of those actions, and unites to what if we put a small amount of money into a bigger pot, and that bigger pot is your campaign. This is where a campaign has a page at a platform. It has that fundraiser effect that we're discussing, and probably it's one of the key elements of our strategy. How do we make it sustainable, or we initiate that proposal? Crowdfunding is a sort of a Swiss tool, okay? Under the name of crowdfunding, it implies different typologies, okay? And I don't want to bore you with a lot of information. There's two, what is understood as alternative. It's a democratic action. Many of our CEOs say that crowdfunding democratizes access to finance. They're very, very clear and concerned about giving access to those initiatives. And we have different typologies. First one, donation-based. You give some money back, give some money to a project that you want just the mission to be accomplished. That's it. The one for reward-based crowdfunding, you expect something back, even though it's a thank you. There's a return of what you put into, okay? The more financial and for profit, we're talking those, especially on the business side. You could lend money, you could even lend €50 to a project that is in a crowdfunding lending platform. So you get a return of your money plus a small interest. Same thing that you do in the bank, you do it through a crowdfunding platform. And the equity side, if you want to invest in a project and get some revenues out of that project, if by chance you produce them, for example, early stage startup that will boost in the future, that you're saying that it's there, equity, it would be your asset to do so. It's a tool that you could actually use. When we talk about match funding, this exercise of bringing private or public funding into this tool and this world of crowdfunding, it is where there is a lot to be said, and I'll show you some examples related to public policies. Okay, if you have a municipality, or you have a regional agency, or you have even a private philanthropist that you think that they could be interested in your crowdfunding campaign, tell them that there is a chance for them to participate. and you say, okay, and you place that tool and that scenario to do so through a digital platform. Understanding this sort of profile, I would, have some information on which is the return, which is the motivation for your funder, but probably what is more interesting, it's going into, the technicalities. First of all, even though we said, okay, now that we are going to open up to that crowdfunding potential and possibilities in the upcoming months, don't take for granted that the actual crowdfunding campaign is going to give you all. And this man is not there when you start. This money man with the millions and stuff is not going to throw money at you when you start and you press go with your crowdfunding campaign. So be aware that Uncle Sam's not there. Anyway, in all cases, what does crowdfunding stand and versus the traditional ways of funding? Okay, as I said, it's a very analog image what we had with the Statue of Liberty, and we transfer those sort of ways of funding a project into a digital platform. What does it bring in? It brings you elements to present your project. It brings you multimedia. It brings you a platform that already has a community around that same platform that you don't know them, so it brings you a lot of different things. It helps you to validate your project. It helps you to communicate it properly. It helps you to present your objectives and be transparent. It's a very participatory action of, okay, I'm going to make a statement, really make a statement. And sometimes when we're looking for funding in traditional methods, they don't want to take the risk. It's complicated, right? This is where crowdfunding does fit in properly in early stage. Does not pretend to eliminate and erase from the face of the earth traditional ways of funding, but it wants to help you and supplement those tools existing. Okay, especially if we think about it from a business orientation, that this diagram helps us to focus on that. Gives us an opportunity to say, okay, where does crowdfunding fit in the entire funding tools that I may know? You may have access to grants. You may access to friends of a museum, or an ethical bank has a program that would support culture, and that you could, if there is a call, I'll send my proposal, or even European funds. Okay, this is where crowdfunding fits for those initial sort of tools for funding, and complements very well for a longer run, okay, for a show. Crowdfunding is transversal. And why is it relevant that it's transversal? Because it hits on different points, different parameters of what culture may be, okay? And we go into one of the first sets, like it's an active engagement. Crowdfunding does bring in that. What does it come first? The idea or the funding to do it? Which is the starting point for all of us. If we think about how those drives or this crazy idea could fit into our MICA community, it could be a prototype, it could be an action that you develop within the organizations that you're working with, and align to do so. Finds a way to build those bridges. Crowdfunding is one of them. To bring you, for example, a case with a big European organization. Okay, Europeana is one of the biggest portals in Europe and probably in the world, with the collections for digitalized content for museums and archives. How could they be actively engaging with their community? They set few scenarios. Okay, this big construction of cultural European, like the cultural assets, why not? I'm going to take advantage of the Italian context, it's a big Colosseum, right? What does it fit what does it fit that institution? It is gives us a parameter to work with institutions, very hardcore, but it talks about the content, it is a repository for digital content that it's accessible for the public. We may think also that, well, there's an arena where pilots could show off, like more related to a museum specifically, that it uses XYZ content of that institution into whatever he's proposing inside. What all this has to do with crowdfunding is that there was a case in which, beyond this organization, you could co-create content, co-create projects and ideas, and then crowdfund them through those training fields. Like you say, okay, it's not just the organization that I work for, it's not Europeana as a digital infrastructure, but what happens around it, it's even better, especially when I'll show you a couple of the examples that I brought with the crowdfunding part. What does crowdfunding bring in is the spirit of many of you, I understand, and I feel, because I'm a big passionate on the cultural and creative industries. And most of the times we're working on a DIY, do it just yourself, like how could I be an individual that has a pulse to do a project? How could I bring that to a community? Crowdfunding has the ability to bring all that, but you have to use the tool wisely, because one of the key aspects of crowdfunding is you make it or you break it. You're successful or you're not. You have to be conscious about it and really focus on what it could bring. To be very clear on your idea, it's crucial. It is crucial. You're going to have one shot, like present that idea to a general public. Could be mates of yours, could be friends, could be colleagues, could be other entities, or even could be bigger donors. But you have to be very, very clear which is your potential roadmap. To expand also this sort of set of tools that I want to bring you with crowdfunding, also mention this case of Europeana came with a white paper for that open co-creation around digital culture, that I would like to also, you'll have the link here and you'll be able to see some examples. I want to do on this session probably to help this scenario forecast, how to bring those ideas into a very simple way of explaining them. And we will do a very brief introduction to those possibilities, okay? But how does crowdfunding come up? And this is where the community is super important. The initial sort of what they say was the first exercise of crowdfunding comes from a music group. Okay, they wanted to do a tour. They were touring around Europe, and the fans in the States say, "Hey, we want to talk of you. We want you in the States." But the band say, "Okay, but we don't have the money." So the fans all together collectively funded the US tour in 1997. Okay, it was the first exercise of crowdfunding, okay, that we could rely on. That is based on that fan effect, okay, and which is the very interesting part. They raised $60,000, sorry, not euros, $60,000 to do that tour. And the reward was obvious, something that it was fulfilling for those. They were taking into account which is the cost, how much people was already buying the tickets, what they're doing for it, and how could they open up, to that more participatory action. It's not your manager who arranges, it's the same, public that you're addressing to that actually he's interested in paying you and supporting you, so why not take advantage? This is the base on one of the first crowdfunding platforms founded in 2001, and it's directly connected to music, to those, I'm going to do an album, I'm going to do a concert, I'm going to play at this event or a nonprofit situation. That fan effect that you get from music, it's what it feeds this Artishare platform. It was the initial one, is one of the first ones that it's considered to be the crowdfunding platform, and it's relied on also the model that a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or Pledge Music sort of developed after. But the first one, an original, let's go for the for the font, which is always good. Artishare.com. It's the name. How do we structure a crowdfunding campaign? And probably this is where we're going to set the basics that we'll see detail by detail, session by session in the upcoming sort of dates. Okay, we're going to talk about the budget. Okay, first of all, top of your pyramid is how much money I need for my idea, which is the project's objectives. What do I want to achieve, and which is the community, the stakeholders, the potential buyers of a crowdfunding campaign. Which is my seller. Which is the amount of people that may be around me or I need to reassure that they make a donation, and which is the communication I'm able to do. I have to question which are my communication skills as an individual, as a collective, as an entity, as an alliance with other, big museum, and he's letting me do this prototype with them. How could I work with them? On a regular basis, in a crowdfunding sort of universe, we will talk about budget, community, communication, reward, objectives, and the team involved. But when we're talking, especially with issues, social issues, culture could be one of those elements that is not purely market. Okay, it's not. This would be a perfect diagram for Kickstarter and any product in Kickstarter. But today's session, probably on that touching on that participatory culture, we have to talk about the impact of initiatives, creating positive impact thanks to what we are doing, and what we are funding, what we are looking for funding. And how do we apply that into the projects that have already a mission, that are capable of generating a very positive impact in our community. Okay, this has to be something already embedded in what we do. And if by chance we want to involve an entity, a public or private big donor, okay, as I said, there is a space in which, if we're talking about civic crowdfunding and we're talking about impact, I'm telling you now that they have a chance to hear you, and probably you could give them the tool to support you, and you say, I'm talking about a social return. I'm talking about something that goes beyond what we are doing as just for the sake of it. We could, if you're touching, for example, why not culture and gender gap? How could we work together? We do a social return by creating a visibility of a project itself. We could talk about culture and sustainability. We could talk about design and circular economy, things that go a bit beyond what we do. And this is where, if you have identified some entities or a museum that could be participatory, that it could open up to that, this is where match funding comes in. It's a hybrid model of financing. They could give you in advance sort of a grant, but it's activated through the crowdfunding campaign. Okay, and I'll get into detail later on, so you get more where we're heading. Okay, this is where it's previously selected as a work of a bit of a protocol before you even start a crowdfunding campaign, to make sure that you have their support, financial, economical, or that alliance that we're talking about. And it's important and relevant to set those stages. What is more interesting to work is the connection that you have with your community. It's a direct contact of temperature of what you could do. Not now, probably not even in the crowdfunding campaign, but also after the crowdfunding campaign. You want to activate, you want to trigger that citizens' engagement within culture, within your content, within your idea, within your project, within the mission that you want them to help you with, which is very, very important. And it's just, we have to go beyond that ego of that we may have as a person, you know, and talk about not just my project, but our project. You know, how could we open up to that? Forget about the spectators, you know, that we want institutions to get filled with people that visit the institution. But what if we create a community around them that could help you to support that symbolic value that this image can transmit? You know, like this is a heavy metal festival in the middle of rural Galicia here in Spain in 2019. It was massive. This image became viral. But I want you to understand that this guy, he's been supported by his community because he's a fan of whoever was playing at the moment. And they thought, okay, no matter what, you're just like us. We'll support you. We'll rise you above the difficulties that you're going through. And you'll enjoy the concerts as we do. You know, that concept of community comes also with that, you know, coherence of of your message. You know, easy. It was his friends at first, you know, tried to help out, and you know, he went for it, and this image was viral. Anyway, we talk about crowdfunding from the entrepreneurship side. If you're culture managers, could you create projects and support entities to do crowdfunding? I tell you, yes, you can, because it helps you to validate your idea, helps you to communicate those projects, to segment even the public that you're addressing your project to, and you're able to produce, thanks to the money, those projects. And sometimes it's not just about ideas. We all have ideas. We may have tons of ideas, but who do we address them to? Who's our target? Who's our stakeholder? This is where I want you to understand that crowdfunding is not, I've got this public project, you know, I've got this museum, I have to pay rent or I have to pay salaries, please fund me. Nah, come on. You know, it's like creating something that you're engaging, you know, that I'm going to create something new. I'm going to create a project. I'm going to create a proposal, and I'm going to address it to who? Which is your target? Who is your public? Is it a young? Is it old? Is it senior? Is it, you know, this is where you do have to do a definition. And even businesses in the design area know it very well. And I'm going to put you a very simple example that how many of you may know Lego? Lego, we all, I was a big passionate, I must say, you know, oh my goodness. We know that it's a target, it's young, it's maybe families, maybe it's a kiddies thing, you know, just early stage. We know some ages has evolved in the product, but could you imagine that it is Lego is for adults? Saying, not as much. What if we test that idea out? This is where Lego launched a series of products that was actually adult focused, okay? And where did they test it? They tested in a crowdfunding campaign, pre-testing before they even launched to the market. But you always have had that temperature of what you could sell before. You know, you're addressing to a specific public, and you're going to take a risk. Probably, if you're smart enough, use your strategy to access that target before you even put it up. You know, like that's a good thing. And this is where even, you know, as a branding, also to be said, they're very smart. They got a full page in which anybody could send their idea of their construction. I would be one of those, you know, like I did something new, you know, something, and you could put it up online and people could vote for that project to be produced or to be financed in the future. You know, so it's a quite interesting mix on how to crowdsource that idea and sort of bring it back, make it, you know, sort of more participatory, more you could rely on that moment. You know, there is a moment of, okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, and especially when Greeks are here, you know, marathon, you know, it's like the idea of it's a struggle. You have to be prepared. You're not going to do a full marathon from day one. You do a list, you know, a bit of warm up at least, you know. You sometimes you prepare in a week in advance or 2 months in advance. You start running, and you know you say, "Oh, I have to get this belly down." You know, my goodness, you know, you do a mini marathon at first, or you try out if you make it or not. You know, this is where you have to be prepared. You have to identify which is your objective, which is your final goal. Okay, is it big? Is it small? Is it expensive? Do I have, which time effort do I have? Is it from now to December? Which effort do I have to put in? If I do it in Christmas, which are the elements that I have to take into account? You know, is it good or bad to do a crowdfunding campaign in Christmas? Depends. If you sell the idea that the reward could be gifts, you know, like could be a gift for Christmas, why not? You know, this is where you coordinate, which is your strategy, your communication, positioning, targeting, which reward you offer back, okay? And many times, this is where the greatness of crowdfunding comes in. There's big successes, yet also big defeats. We have to be conscious about it. This is where I want you to be curious, do the benchmarking, check out platform, check projects that you say, wow, that's cool. But also those ones that, what, he didn't make it. Why? You know, which is the element that didn't work in this case? We could highlight some and we could discuss about it, and you know, but that's part of also the future. You know, we could talk about big infrastructures, you know, heritage, that heavy weight of heritage, you know, even that it's a common good, that we have to defend it somehow, even though it's stolen from us sometimes and put in somewhere that is not accessible for the general public. We may talk about traditions, you know, like immaterial culture, you know. We may talk about objects that probably are minor for a museum, or infrastructure that you say, it's a ruin. Nobody cares about it, you know. So, and all of a sudden, it becomes a collective oblivion, you know, and it's a ruin and it's in risk, you know, as the Europe and Austria are pointing out, you know, massive infrastructures that they were pure heritage in its full bloom at the time, but now they're not worth a penny. How could we support that? I want to show you an example that, you know, there's a French platform that actually focuses in castles. You could buy a castle. You know, in 2019, I found this article in which 25,000 people bought a castle. They were owners, that are landlords and landladies of a castle. But this is one unique case, but they've got tons of examples all around in France, which there's a lot of ruins around, you know. And the fun thing about this crowdfunding platform is how it was established, you know. They received 1.6 million, okay, in donations to recuperate that castle itself. And it was very, very simple. By 50 euros, you could have a share. And if you put an extra one, any cultural activity or any tourist attraction that it has been done over there, you could be a stakeholder. Why not? You know, have a share. So even we're talking about equity in a way, you know, and it's something that is cultural and something peculiar, right? There's other examples in which I could rely on and how to combine afterwards. We could go to the flashy ones of, you know, nice, very nice artists, graphic artists making an intervention somewhere. I don't know if you may know this guy by the face or by its name. It's Okuda. He's a Spanish graphic artist, you know, and he did an intervention here. You know, it was called the skate church. You know, it was massive. The peculiarity about this case, and I know that we were talking about, you know, Catholic, and, you know, we talk about an infrastructure that is religious, but in this particular case, it was a private owned church. Okay, it's run by a family that, well, you know, they don't make any use out of it anymore. It could become a ruin, but they did an intervention completely open-minded to what it could be done in that church, and they went for it. And it's a touristy attraction for right now, you know, like and ages ago. How do you think they got the funding to do such a thing? Wow. Thanks to crowdfunding, thanks to crowdfunding. They did a crowdfunding campaign with the Spanish platform at the time to, go for it. I'll share the links here, and you'll have it in the PDF when we share it, and you can visit it. And I think it's already in the 10th. It was highlighted in the 10th anniversary of Bergami. It's a Spanish cultural industry focus crowdfunding platform, reward based. Okay, this is something as I was telling you, something you get back. But this is I would say minor actions. What happens when we talk about big legacy? We talk about big institutions, and we may talk about the museum, a massive museum. Like the Museum of Louvre has one of the pieces of the Victor Samatras that needed conservation and restoration of what it is. Yeah, we could take it out from the general budget, or we could even open up to crowdfunding. It's one of the first big institutions, massive legacy guardians, that actually use crowdfunding to do the restoration of the Victoria Samatras. It is an example, but that did follow their strategy upon crowdfunding. 2013, they were the first ones to do so, but afterwards they did other examples, and they bought even heritage materials. It's not just the Louvre, it's also the National Museum of El Prado in Madrid, that taking advantage of their 200th anniversary, let's launch a crowdfunding campaign to buy an actual new piece, which in this particular case was a painting in itself. They collected over 200,000 euros for the buying that piece of artwork. Yet it was more expensive than that, but they combined it, with big friends, and they already had 120,000 plus this 200,000 with over 80 backers, which is a lot of money if we think about it. They actually got the painting itself. We imagine the Louvre, as I said, as a big infrastructure, and we imagine how important and relevant could be the content or the container or the content that container has, and how we could build a strategy upon it. This, it was a unique exercise. It has there was the first example, taking advantages of communication, what it was going to be done, which are the comments, where it was, how it was taking place. We have the digital infrastructure to do so, and this is where it's not just now for this, but it's forever. They're doing every now and then. They're doing projects to for their heritage and what they're doing. But we could go in the same way with modern art. Jeff Koons with Guggenheim. One of the most iconic figures, this doggy, the puppy, they call the puppy. It needs to be restored. Could you imagine that? Like a puppy has to be restored. Yes. And they did a crowdfunding campaign for us, which is an active campaign to get 100,000 to do the irrigation, to restore the irrigation for the flower puppy. So it's quite peculiar, quite peculiar. But we may talk about impact. Our idea has a connection within concrete SDGs. Has a connection with whatever material I may have related to culture. We talk about magazines, we talk about music, we talk about paintings, we talk about initiatives. We work with cultural assets within immigrants. Could we work together with other alliances? This is where it's so good and so positive to talk about crowdfunding and culture and bring in impact with it, because we expand our circles. We're not just talking about what we're doing, but the greater good that we could build together, right? And this is one of the key aspects. To show you also an example of how could be connected that impact, there's a Spanish platform that is called Goteo. well, you see it down here, goteo.org. They're committed to social innovation projects, in which there's many projects related to culture itself, with those extras that I was telling you about. But what is most interesting about this experience of what they was, how they explain their citizens' engagement. And they do it in a very graphic way, which is, you may write a project, okay, and you're at the bottom of this graph, you know, that small icon that you have on the side. You'll be promoting with that engagement with your citizens. You want a citizen's influence in the public life. And at the other side, at the other extreme, you want their involvement. You want them to bring them in, to have them be part of you. This is where crowdfunding, it's an exercise to, first of all, create awareness. Say, hello world, I'm here. I've got a project. I want to explain it to you. Second, you want an engagement. I commit to this project by explaining the phases, the steps, what you want to do, what you're creating with it. You give the chance that use that crowdfunding platform to empower them. To empower what for? Just for the money? No, just also to share your project. Ask them to extend your circles and just explain what you're doing. And people will be that word to mouth that we could imagine. How could we say it or empower them if our project is fit in a draw? Oh, that's complicated. And one of the things that I wanted also to share is that you're taking a collective decision. That crowdvocacy, you know, you're putting out your idea, you're asking for their support, and also it will be thanks to their support that project will be held. If a project is not funded, it doesn't exist. You won't get the money, or most of the platforms have that thing, you know, that you have to get to the top of your pyramid objective of what you propose. But if you don't reach there, means that your community is not backing you up, which is sad and bad. But it also it's a hard lesson to learn. You know, saying I'm going to conquer the world, and maybe you don't have the troops to do so. You know, and maybe it's better for the better. You know, don't risk it if you don't have the support of your community. If you have the support of your community, it means that you are awesome. You are awesome with the support of your community. Okay, and this is, I know it's going to sound a big jump, but it is something that it's highlighted in this model or this platform itself, because they connect with a lot of the democratizing tools, okay, in which the CDIM or the CIDA Madrid, in the case, you know, it was more participatory budgeting, okay, and policy making. It's a lot to connect to that. What if we took decisions together with our public authorities? And I know it's a big jump, okay, and I know we are scaling up on what you're doing, but it is also an action that when we're talking about policy making, and we're talking about big institutions do have a lot of politics, and they're hard, and they're bulky, and they don't take the decisions, easily. Crowdfunding brings in that word. I heard this quote, and it's been going with me for years at the 2018 European Region Week, in which one of the key chairmen for a European network of living labs, that exercise of co-creation, more participatory design, he just blotted out. It's like, challenges are really complex, and we need interconnected solutions to common problems. It is true that we have that situation, and it could be done, especially with public authorities, if they're innovative and give an agile response. What do you mean with an agile response? Is that you're quick, that you get results, that you achieve that small goals that you're putting at, and even though it's a marathon, the sprint that you have to do. but you know, you're very, very clear. And this is where crowdfunding, with your planning, with your strategy, with your communication plan that has to be arranged from day one, it is your action to, okay, what goes on, what goes okay, how do I advance, how quick I get a response. It's very direct. You know, you see if the income is coming, if the people are visiting your website, if the people are sharing it in their social networks. It's a direct answer, direct answer. And this is this element of the policy making and how crowdfunding brings, it has also opened up that fifth model, co-hybrid, that is the match funding. How does it work? And probably to put you in a difference, you know, you're bringing in public and private entities into the game. Okay, you're asking them to support you. They're big investors, or they big donors. But you say, okay, I'm going to set some rules in which we could collaborate differently. It brings in that, it's like brings in an institution that could call for projects and would give you double the money, or other projects or other entities that will give you some effort on communication. Maybe you're not so good on communication, you get the support of a bigger institution that has it's nice and shiny, to the general public. He could give you money, extra money, if you make it. Or it could be about training or resources to access as a public where to evaluate or do my project. It doesn't mean that you have to fully engage him at first, but it could be an after match. How does it work? Match funding, you're bringing entity, they could be public or private. You set a time frame, which is what's your campaign going to last, which is the intention that you have with them. They could call for projects, and they could call for if they're open-minded, depending on their profile, and they could even put a limit to how much money they're going to give you. They could say, okay, I'll give you 3,000, I'll give you 5,000, and they will have some sort of mission that you have to be aligned with. I could talk about museums and education, culture and science. I don't know, graffiti or photo artists and gender. This is where you have to sort of bring in the pieces of the puzzle that are a nice match with that organization. And afterwards, you could look at a crowdfunding platform that is suitable for you, which is the exercise that you could do with those entities. It could be related to your location. It could be related to which moment you are with your funding and how it could be brought in, and which is the sort of algorithm for that match. When we talk about that algorithm and that aligning, also have to say that if we are talking about impact, this crowdfunding projects and supporting projects from the SDG part has the 17.7, the goal in which other entities are supporting other projects to achieve, SDGs impact, and for a greater good. And it's a complete interaction within both. To define that algorithm and to help you to also highlight what is what's match funding, there is examples in which, first of all, there's four different typologies of match funding. They're going to give you the money at the beginning. Okay, from day one, they go for the big hit. Good run. Good start. Or there would be the ones that are bridging. They would say, hey, I want you to do a bit of the effort, try to get a bit of money. If you reach the 50% or the 75%, I'll give you the rest. Okay, this is where we are bridging. Okay, you give them some conditions, you play about. There's the other ones that they don't want to risk it. They want you to go for the full blast. If you make it, I'll support you again afterward. Okay, this is where extra money could come from thanks to a crowdfunding campaign. Okay, this is where you could also work it out. Thanks to your success, they're going to validate it and they're going to help you to do so. Or there's the original, like how it started, the match funding with the crowdfunding platforms. It was Goteo, and in 2018, it was the 2013 is the first one to do it with the International University of Andalusia. okay, with 4 projects. They wanted to support 4 projects at the time that were working specifically in education and archives, okay, informal, formal archives. So how could they work around? So that was very, very concrete. And they worked on one-on-one, €1 by a citizen, €1 by institution, which is, you know, it's, if you think about it, 20, you put €50 just because you want to put into a project, that entity is backing you up with another 50. And the project receives €100, which is not bad. You know, this is that triggering participation that we were talking about is directly, it has a direct reaction. This model, and to put you in some references in cultural institutions, the Europeana, I was telling you about before, did a match funding call in 2018 to support 3 projects related to education. One of the questions and one of the missions is, obviously you access the information that you have on the website, on Europeana, on that repository content, you know, that it's there, accessible, you know, Creative Commons, feel free. And if you're a teacher, you're a cultural manager that work with kids or seniors or whoever is your target, why not? Go for it. They selected 3 projects related to education from all over Europe. The location was open, and they were actually limiting that match funding to €10,000 for the 3 projects, which is sure of no, yeah, 3,000 and something for each grant, you know, and it was done one-on-one. You'll have extra info over there, and is an institution that is well known, but we could say about a regional government, you know, this is the regional government of Gipuzkoa in the Basque Country, that they actually run it as a policy, part of the, you know, 1 year, they do it every single time, you know. And to put you an example, they supported this project that is a cultural, not much, let's say it's a nomad photo studio, okay, that goes around the different the countryside and takes pictures of the citizens, you know. They do in the small villages. They have their infrastructure is very clear, you know. They do this touring around with this caravan, right? And it's very clear the support of the institution here is they were matching any donation by 2, by multiplying by 2, okay? You get 50, you get 100, you know, thanks to the institution. From these cases, I don't want to bore you with more info on it. There is more information in a report that we did with Elisa and the team at the European Crowdfunding Network, and we were very happy to show you examples, you know, from all over Europe and from different platforms. I wanted to also to highlight one specifically with a private entity. Okay, probably. It is peculiar because it's a community theater in a rural area that few guys decided to buy a ruin and they didn't have money to fix it. You know, like it's a peculiar thing. But they wanted to develop a full project that would recuperate that ruin and would bring it up to nowadays by creating a theater with a bar, with, you know, one that has a sort of a economical impact also within culture. And they're these three guys, okay? The promoters of the project. But what is most interesting about this case is not just the location, that it's a rural project, it's not urban. So crowdfunding became very useful to vanish the borders of the project. The limitations of the actual project itself was very ambitious, but they went for a crowdfunding campaign that it was successful. The beginning of this year, they got funded. But the most important and relevant in this case, particular case, is the Alliance for the Match Funding. They got a grant from a private foundation, okay, of €20,000, which it was the foundation from the Primavera Sound Festival in Barcelona, which is, I think it's well known internationally. If you don't, tell me and I'll send you the marvelous look at the festival. And their commitment was with the music and participatory actions, and then it was suitable for that match funding. So you have to look and identify those institutions that you may have in your radar, that it could be, willing to help you or support you somehow. And with a crowdfunding campaign could be the chance to catch them and bring in their interest. This to be said, and now going back to what does crowdfunding bring in to culture and to our projects, is not just about the money, okay? It's not just about the money. It's a code of ethics that comes with it, okay? It's an exercise of transparency, okay? It's an exercise of being legit. Thanks to the support of your of your community, you'll be doing good. It's an exercise of cooperation. You're obviously talking out, that saying, okay, I need your support, I need your actions. How could we do it? How we could collaborate? Could be an exercise of co-creation. I want to build a proposal from scratch, and I wanted to build it with you all, okay? And I could ask for funding for it. This is where comes in. Solidarity comes through. It's an exercise. Also, we understand that culture has a lot of voluntary action, has a lot of voluntarism somehow, and is something that it's been present also and has been highlighted in the worst moments of COVID. How many times we've heard stories about cultural artists, musicians that have been supported thanks to that moment of crisis. We may think that crowdfunding could bring in that conscious or unconscious part too. Like you have a mission, you have a project, needs funding and a need to do so. But let's go to the practical, okay? How do we build bridges in between what we want to do and what we are aiming, okay? They say the minds are like parachutes. They work best when they're open, right? Crowdfunding is the same. Open up to the articulation. If you don't say no to an idea at first, okay? Articulate it. Somehow try to pull the strings of what you want to do. Make it very graphic, I have it in my mind, and how could I bring it into a simple thing? Is it a direct action? We were talking about digital assets. This is a diagram from another EU project that wanted to work on how do we work with digital assets and which is the interaction that we have with the public, from Europeana to Flickr to our social networks, and how could we transform it and edit it after in the space, right? We have other examples, silly examples that could be, even challenging. If we're talking about history and we're talking about old assets, could we bring them in through to nowadays? Could we bring them into that contemporary vision upon the objects? Can we work even as a product? Why not? This is the case of Kunikode, is an artist that always works with 3D printing and digital assets, and he brought this idea as a product, something funny, which I think is funny. I don't know, it's always. If we talk about institutions, how the British Museum with their massive cultural objects, which are fascinating, they could have exhibitions in which they transmit with every piece, to every explanation, the curator of an exhibition just feels it and explains it so well. There's tons of examples that we could show from those cultural institutions that are there. For example, this, I won't put you the video, but you'll have it in the link here, the YouTube link, and the description more in detail of the back end of an exhibition. This was an exhibition was from the Celts in the British Museum, and how interesting was to communicate what was happening in the exhibition. But anyway, what would happen as an institution that has those objects there and you're not able to touch them? What if a visitor could touch the objects, feel what history is like? How does it feel in their hands? Is it big? Is it small? That silly idea. It is part of a digital project related to the British Museum. They've scanned many of their pieces, and you could even download it to print it yourself, or you could even ask for it, or you can even visualize it. You know, this is where we have examples. They even done families, you know, this is a small shop, but they still have it. You know, they have project related to families to bring in and do a pre-production on 3D. I want you to think about which is the spark. What is your motivation? You know, which is your motivation? And do it in a very simple way, hopefully. You know, I'm going to try to help it. Tell me which is, what if a type of user would be the protagonist of your story? What if he could do something on a specific action? Or which is the tool or content you're going to give him? And more importantly, which is the goal of what you want to do? Which is the benefit that you're giving society? Which is the benefit that probably you want to achieve? And to put you an example, what happens if a designer could access and save content in a personal profile, which is a set of digital collections? I want to empower designers community to use my content. This answers this line of action, this concrete way of building a phrase is the result for this. The Rijksmuseum, well known, you know, already know, has digitalized all their content, and anybody could access that content freely and create new products. They even have an award to create in 2020 was the latest award, but they had been up and running for quite a while. This is part of their products that they sell in their shop, you know, so they open up to the participation, to designers to use content. You know, there's few videos from the Rijks Awards, you know, that it's cool, you know, and I would suggest you to go to look at it. And but more particular, what do you do with content? You know, you could do a lot of things. You could bring ideas, bring other brands. You know, Heineken did a special collaboration with the Rijksmuseum to become also a big donor. Why not? Bring in other types of products. This obviously it's a big one. Fine, you'll tell me how cheeky Mauricio is, you know. He's all about Heineken, you know, it's a big brand, it's a big museum. But what is the most interesting about this project is about the small stuff, you know. These proposals of ideas with the content and heritage from the actual museum was part of that you know, brainstorming that they did with the awards itself. You could even find some of these products in their actual shop. They challenge that creativity. They challenge the people to be inspired by that content, you know, which is crucial to live and, you know, and breed on living legacy of our culture itself, you know. And there's tons of ideas which are brilliant. Anyway, other example, what if a heritage fan could create different stencil sets with a variety of those templates, which is the goal? To bring those designs from the past and become an inspiration for the future. This is an exercise, very simple exercise, that they recuperated patterns from old abandoned places. And they decided to create that template set for graffiti, which became a crowdfunding campaign. You know, it's a memory design pack, you know, which is very simple, very, you know, I know it's very, you may think it's a bit shallow on the concept of culture, but I think the background that it has, it brings us a lot of inspiration. What happened with those old abandoned places when at the time they were, you know, in their full light and full thing, but they got forgotten. We have other examples in which products could bring in, and I would introduce you to the mini museum, and I would like to check it in Kickstarter. They've got a lot of proposals for that mini museum. Very simple, but millions on each campaign. Fine, fair enough. It's America, we know that, and we know that culture maybe it's just a trophy, but but it's really interesting as an exercise of heritage. How could we make it, more accessible to a general public? Probably on an educational side, you always have to one piece of everything, But if we go to nowadays, and we go to after what has been happening with COVID, institutions have had a hard time to recuperate their position. In this case of an Irish museum, they did a crowdfunding campaign during the hardest moments of COVID to make a small garden part or garden installation, which would honor the people that died in COVID. Okay, and this is a very, I know it's a very challenging moment, but we see the response in the crowdfunding campaign. Last but not least, one of the projects that I did highlight at the case of the Europeana, it started very simple. They had a concrete situation that it was right put in front of them, that a private collector wanted to donate 2,000 objects to the museum. They didn't know what to do with it but they decided, okay, we'll accept it under the condition that it's accessible, fully accessible for general public. I don't want that content, or don't want to have those objects locked in a room. No, that's not the purpose. And the goal was giving the chance to fashion students to learn from the classics. It started simple. This idea is not even said by me. It's said by this exercise of co-creation that appeared that we did at the Rijksmuseum at the time. That simple idea of, okay, I get the content. How could I make it accessible to the general public? What do I give back? I give free patterns. I make collaborations. I work with other designers that are already coming to my museum. Is the Fashion Museum of Antwerp. It's like in Belgium, yeah. In which what they were doing is placing that target, doing that co-creation process. And okay, what if I had this and such and such and such user coming to use that technology? This is where there was a fashion designer, there was a mother, there was a fashion student, there was a kid that could access that content. Imagine those scenarios. Those scenarios became a crowdfunding campaign, okay, for the museum. There is a full video of the donor, okay, or the lady that actually, Stefan Veres, excuse my French is not the best, in which she was introducing the collection to a general public. They did a video, and this is the Vimeo link that you'll find here. And there was a researcher that studied the impact of doing this crowdfunding campaign. Okay, this is where data comes through, and this is where the relevance of what we've achieved also will help us out to show to anybody else our results. This is important, that it's a beta tester that we could evaluate and we could modulate to the future. And that was there, like that exercise on this pieces. She had that, as we said, a personal collection that she wanted to give back to the museum, and to preserve it, to make the conservation of the materials. But she did not want to close it in a closet. Especially the Antwerp has a students community in fashion, with the Royal Fashion School that is super important for them, and it's a way to combine and align those actions. So I want to stop here and also open up to that debate. Like, what are your ideas? What do you bring? What do you want to challenge? Please open the mics. Is there anybody awake after my monologue?
Thanks, Mauricio. It was really, really interesting, good in depth to this topic. If there are some questions, or if you want to share your ideas, I know that some of you fill out the form of interest, so don't be shy and share your doubts, your questions, your ideas about crowdfunding.
I don't bite. I tell it from now. I don't bite. Who wants to be the brava? Come on, go for it. Challenge.
Maybe Elisa, Paola, Rebecca.
No. Paola said, no. Let's make it simple. Do you have any idea with a clear user around you? Is there a target, a person you're working with that you're interested to focus on? Be centric. Say, what could I build thanks to their living? What do I have, or which concrete action I would like them to participate? Something simple. No big bluffy things that I've shown you. Narrow down to earth. No, Elisa, come on. She's thinking. I see. Mrs. Galvano is thinking. Anybody?
Can I want to make a comment because
Great.
I noticed that some of the examples are not only about the crowdfunding campaign, but also a combination of a business model based on open licensing. And thank you for presenting these examples, because many people think that when opening content, you lose money, you lose revenue from copyright management. But the examples that you presented showcase the exact opposite, and thank you for including them in your presentation. I'm saying this because I'm an open access advocate, and thank you for
it's a good opportunity. I worked a lot with open content. Like with Europeana was one of the focus for many years that we were obsessed about, and how to co-create initiatives around institution. Sometimes it is difficult to make them understand that open content could be a revenue, but it's not just about the money. It's also about the visibility, about creating a further impact on what they are guardians of, our legacy. But if our legacy has nobody interested, or they don't see the use of it, or they don't even know what the Victory Samatras, or what a dress would like, or what a coin may mean, or at the time, are the museums useful anymore? If they don't have any public, that's where we have to really make a stand and say, okay, open up collections for a greater good. Doesn't mean that they're going to be, and this is where the examples I showed you did feed on that crowdsourcing spirit, which is one of the bases of co-creation, and also one of the bases of working collectively with a project, which probably will need funding. It's a way to combine those strengths, and feed on them, because this is where it is the future of more participatory culture. It probably is a stronger statement, than not just crowdfunding. And you've seen, for example, the case of the Rijksmuseum. Yes, it is a big institution, but a simple action of that award, it could fit in the same thing for a match funding. That grant that you're going to give to students. Why not say, okay, I've got this institution that works with literature, famous Italian literates from the 17th century, but nobody has heard about them before. What if I work with young students to create new content, to create a small documentary on it, short, something simple that could be inspiring, could create pieces on Instagram related to this, guys, you know, to make it fun and engaging, you know, and why not to do a crowdfunding campaign for that purpose? You know, why not? It's like, this is where, thanks to that, this is where you open, you know, you say, hey, you know, we could do this together. Oh, Rebecca, anytime, it's, you know, open content, creative comments. Who would like to share more? Go.
I don't want to be always the one who talks, but you know,
yes.
I know. I will always talk. No, first of all, thank you for your presentation. You know, I'm such a fan.
No. I'm a fan of you, my friend.
And I was thinking about your last question because I was focusing during your presentation on how can be a very useful tool, crowdfunding, and then evolved also in match funding and things like that, to not only engage community, but also to plan and test activities directly. That's it. But that made me think how much I should, as a cultural institution, not thinking just as museum, because if I think a museum, it's easier to think about the kind of cultural heritage I've got inside. But for instance, if I have to think on an association, a theater association, they do not have a kind of tangible cultural heritage. And I was thinking about how much on a crowdfunding campaign should I focus on what it is my peculiar thing instead of what is around me.
Good. This is, you have to do both things, I'm afraid, my friend. You have to focus on your idea, made it put out very simple, even in a tweet. You know, that's why I was saying, okay, what if, to help you to express it very, very easily to a general public and to anybody. But at the same time, you have to turn on your radar of what could I connect to my idea? What could I connect to my project if it's needed? This is where it's an exercise that, is it the stakeholders or community that we have around us? Is it other projects that I love these guys of 3D printing, and there's the Fab Lab nearby where I work, my university. Why not we do collaboration together? You know, why not? Could be, you know, a way to bring in, and why not say, okay, a design school that wants to do this theatrical sort of exercise, and we need laser cut scenarios, you know, just made simple, challenge them. Or could be a recycled, I don't know, we talk about sustainability, you know, something that could we do, create a play that is the fullest scenario, it's revamped thanks to materials that were in the trash, you know, from chairs, from woods, from metal. I don't know. This is where we could think creatively and co-create that project. You know, it could be other networks that will help us to disseminate our idea, you know, that would open up to whatever comes, and they'll share my crowdfunding campaign in their newsletter, which they have 80,000 users, you know, could be that. Or is it an institutional? If it's needed, you know, if you want it, you know, because it's heavyweight, you know, like you have to be, you know, fully aligned with papers, with work, you know, that is protocol. And sometimes they don't want to cross certain lines, and, you know, they don't want to get into a crowdfunding campaign because I'm too good to ask for money. Oh, you know, that's why they could be innovative if they really challenge themselves with crowdfunding to open up to a communication. Because one of the pillars that we were saying, okay, it's the money, it's you know, top one, community. How do you open up to other communities? Say I'm this theater project, and I already have my business sorted. You know, I do my plays, I got my channels for my production and my tours. But what if I want to work with, you know, people that have, you know, that have special needs? I want to work with immigrants, or I want to work with kids that are having trouble in their youth, or they're having even mental problems. This is where, and to put you an example, there's a theater company that's called La Joven in Spain that works in a very simple alignment of this idea. They want to work with young people to challenge themselves and don't be shy. What for? For the real world, for when they go to the labor market, they go into an interview, and they want reassurance and stuff. And they were working with people that was having hard times. They were young, unemployed in this particular case, but they were working through culture and through theater plays. And even they were touching the topics or the plays that they were doing. They were, socially committed with young people, talk about immigration, talk about gender, talk about certain topics that it's a motivation for them to understand that it's also something that affects them. But they were the sort of the back end of this plays as an institution and a sort of a tour and a theater company. Okay. It's the mission that I achieved thanks to theater. Okay. This is where we're heading. And this is, if you put that, and to put you put that into crowdfunding campaign, saying, I'm going to do this play, I'm going to do this tour, I'm going to sell tickets to see the play, to, get some merch. I'll tell you now, that's going to be a success because they're active, they're committed, they're aligned with their mission. And they're aligned with the community, to put you a raw example, and this is where it's an opportunity. Crowdfunding is an opportunity also to test out, to go out of your safety zone. Institutions don't want to risk it. Collectives, yeah, probably they want to challenge more themselves, but you have to coordinate your strategy. Why are you doing it for? Which is your purpose? Which is the mission? Because that will follow. Even if you co-create it, if the exercise to be coherent with your funding is about sitting around in a table with a group of your most beloved stakeholders and say, okay, let's do something together. I've got this idea. And crowdfunding could be a tool to finance, but I want to make sure that we co-create it collectively before I even launch it. What you will get to do that crowdsourcing effect, or is that you'll have them committed even before your crowdfunding starts, and they will talk about your crowdfunding and will support you with their money, with their word to mouth thing, because they're committed from day one, from that brief meeting that you had when you first started sharing that idea. That's participatory, and even challenge that your idea may shift. Your idea may evolve and adapt. That's the exercise, In the crowdfunding, as I said, you're saying, hey, world, I'm here, I got a project, and you build up on that. And that's the good thing about crowdfunding.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. I took my ass off. Just pull a string and go again.
Welcome to my world.
I'm one of those old antique toys. Pull this thing. Anyway. Okay.
Sorry, Mauricio.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead. No.
Yes, about the kind of cultural organizations, I would like to ask participants if they have any proposal about, or if they know some cultural organization that could be interested in take part in support our crowdfunding project. Do you know some cultural organization that could be museums, small museums, or bigger museums, or library or theater that could be interest that we could involve in our crowdfunding project?
Bernadetta, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Mauricio.
Ciao.
Ciao. We participate to a project with a banking foundation for biodiversity, and we won the project. And in this project, we have different activities like the activities with schools. We're adult for some learning about the garden, the flowers, the plants. And also we have create in a public park an area with some beehive, the home. Okay, and now our ideas is to create a structure to see the bees in a good way, and in sure. In particular for schools and for the young, and we want to create this structure also for the community, for the citizens, that we can go to the park and to stay near this the beehives and read a book, some music. And we have not found to create this structure with the funds of the foundation. So if you think that it's could possible to create a crowdfunding campaign to this to
be
these
said,
ideas,
it looks really interesting from scratch. Is if we looked at, well, let's do it on that exercise I was telling you. Which is your user? I want kids to see.
It's the primary ideas is for kids, for school, but we can use the structure to different activities for the about the environment and the biodiversity of our territory. For example.
But you see the elements of the phrase I was telling you about, you know, which is your target, the young, you know, like children could see the bees in action through what do you want to create? Which is is it a hive in there that has there is transparent, there is few projects that have open hives that you could even, you know, get and download and produce, and you could see the transparency and you see how the bees go in, and it's an occasional thing. And your main goal is to give the children the full blast of the biodiversity, you know, which is produced, that they see that action, and they even could combine that. And it's perfectly, I would understand that it's easy to start to articulate, okay, how much money do you need for that hive? Which is the community that you have around the kids? You've got the families, you've got the schools, you've got the teachers, you know, it's something sort of easy to catch. Which communication you could do about it? You could explain the details. You could explain where you would start from. You could explain who would take care of the hive, or even what you would do with the honey. This could be one of the rewards. You know, you have the honey. You know, get the honey from the first hive that we've built. You know, why not? Something that it could go from there. If you're working, for example, with schools, you know, why not say, okay, like make a contest with, you know, with the bees and the hive and the full experience that you're giving. And probably one of the easier rewards could be, I get some of the postcards from the drawing from the kids, and it's part of the reward that you get. You know, I don't know. You could pull that string a bit, and definitely go for a crowdfunding campaign, as you see very easily. Probably I'm too creative sometimes, and I just see the invisible connections. But there is something that you could work on. You know, definitely. And
thank you very much.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for sharing, Bernadetta. That's a good thing. So, Elisa, go for it. Ms. Galvano had the thought. It came out. She gave birth to the thought. Tell me.
I was wondering, well, can I have some more information about that project, about the that camper traveling in places to take pictures?
Of course, of course, of course.
I have, like, my project is about
okay.
traveling theater, should be.
Good.
And that would do something very similar, like traveling in places where theaters are not present. And
very good, very good, very good.
I like to.
No problem.
My idea is also to build like, I have this project of how you say, self-power, like power independent.
Okay.
So it should just, you go in a place, you set
no problem whatsoever. I'm gonna put it here in the chat, so you have it there invisible. I'll put you the English version. The video's in Spanish, but with Italian, we're like cousins. I could talk Italiano. Elisa's gonna kill me. Megan's gonna kill me. I know, but you know. In all cases, you have it there, and for also probably, if you want, we could wrap up here. I'll show you a bit the tools and the steps that we're going to go through in the upcoming sessions with Elisa Patriarca. We'll send you an information more in the description of what the steps are about, but I want to focus on those 3 pillars I was telling you about: money, community, and communication, which are crucial for any strategy that you want to work upon. Okay, this is where I want you to focus on what we want. We want you to fulfill what you have and see the possibilities of developing a crowdfunding campaign more coherently or realistically. Okay, this is where it's an exercise also to validate. Okay, this is we'll have a first. Let's say that in this session we'll have a first X-ray situation of now. Doesn't mean the end. The end will take a lot of, that marathon of going through it. To share again, 1 second. And okay. I want to, highlight. So we have, is it for your understanding of what the purpose of sessions like this are? Okay, it's defining that project and overcome the idea, the objectives of which are they big, small, large, on a time frame, or the number of stakeholders that you're going to help, or is the general benefit that you're going to focus, or is the social commitment that I was talking you about in different examples. Then you focus on that crowdfunding pyramid that I showed you before to understand the budget, to understand the figures of maximum and minimum, which is the team effort that I want to put into it. How much is going to take me? Am I talking about the infrastructures that I have to build or the materials that I have to put in place? We were talking just with Benedetta saying, okay, what if you buy a hive that it's transparent, that it's infrastructure or it's materials? I need the pots to put in the honey into it. I need to consider that in my budget, if I want to make it as realistic as possible. Then you set the time is a resource, especially on your campaign. Okay, you have a specific time that the campaign is going to last 1 month, 3 months. You set it. Be realistic. If you're looking for a lot of money, means that you are having big objectives, and if you do it in a very short time, it means you have to put a lot of effort into your crowdfunding campaign. Be realistic. Question yourself if it's feasible or not. Plan each move. We're talking that we're planning ahead, okay, and communicate as much as you can. If you're successful, this is where you build trust. You have you got that seal of quality that your community has given you. Be transparent, be truthful, close that circle of trust that they've built around you. They've shared their money and they've shared your project in the social networks. Then take advantage. The reward that you're giving back and the supporters could be a long run for you. Take advantage of having a good relationship with them, and probably in the next need or the next situation or the next event, they'll come with you. They'll participate if you have a good relationship with them. There's a long, like in marketing perspective, sometimes it's a long run of a product and the marketing sort of tools. Show impact, especially when we're talking about culture, is so relevant to talk about the KPIs that you achieve and the ones that you successfully got thanks to a crowdfunding campaign and after. You have to see this as your friends. Okay, this is where the budget comes through, and just to shift in some of the different sessions and the exercise, we may have that funding pie. How much money do I need? What do I need it for? What is the things that I could I get it for free, or could I get volunteer work, or could I get a sponsored material on whatever? I cut it from my funding lists. How much do I need, and when? Is it an emergency? Is it something that I want to do now? Is it something that I want to do a summer festival? Is it I wanted to do, I don't know, in a year time, I want to build the biggest event on culture that Italy has seen? Or I'm okay. I'll do a campaign that could be, timeless, and if I get the money, I'll do it. Or is it available to you? We're talking about grants, and I was telling you also about the combination of crowdfunding. Can I access it? Can me as a professional, or me as an entity, or I could do so? Could I really access that money? And that big figure, you could split it in small pieces, saying, okay, what is the amount of money that I need to buy? I know use Bernadette, take, and there's nothing personal. I'm going to put you in as an example. Okay, take advantage of, okay, if I put the hive, how much it's going to cost me? If I put personnel to do this visit and to show the kids and to arrange the visit to the place, how much is it going to cost me? Is it about the pots in which I'm going to put the honey that it's been produced at the spot in the marvelous park that I've chosen as a location? Is it part of my materials? Is it about the sending of this honey that I have to be concerned about? All those things are the ones that you could list out. But probably you would say, okay, which ones of those are the ones that I will take to a crowdfunding campaign? Probably I want to go just for the hive itself, because it's the most expensive part. All the rest I think I could work it out, right? It could be an exercise of choosing of that budget, what is the most relevant part for a crowdfunding campaign. For my community, it's something that I always do, that you have to put your project in the middle of this cyberspace. Okay, you are the center of the universe, because your proposal has a lot of people that you're not aware that they're there many times. That you have a contact with somebody in a foundation that he's willing to listen. He's a very nice chap. But I could give it a try. Or there's an institution that is light years away from you, but you would have the chance to say, okay, I could show you my project. I could show you what I'm doing for the crowdfunding campaign before I start, during, or even what I've achieved after. Have it in your radar, set of what you're heading, because that's your community. And this is where your product is the center of all. Friends, family, acquaintance that that will support you. That's the core of crowdfunding. The other projects that I was mentioning about, what if a Fab Lab would help me to build that hive? Why not? Could it be something that they would be interested if we participate together and we do the effort together to go for the crowdfunding campaign? Is it other networks? I'll support myself in educational or a specific school, that would definitely, or sustainable schools that they could challenge sustainability as one of their values. Why not? And choose that. Or partnership that is already existing. I say, listen, I've got this new idea. I think it could work out. Could you, back me up again? But this time I'll show you a new scenario. Media partners. if we talk about our media and we talk about the communication system and the communication tools, sometimes our daily routine, they weren't interested. Oh yes, probably I'm wrong, you know. But if we have something that it needs their attention, that it is newsable, that it's new, that it is innovative because we're approaching it in a different vision or a different way, I probably would think that they would listen to you more, and they would give you even a space in their media. You could even think about other fundings. What if I got this this crowdfunding campaign up and running? Would I be able to get more money from a grant or from another project? Why not? And probably one of the other things to take into account, it is don't take me wrong, I don't want you to contact an actor just because of the sake of it, no, or that influencer that has tons of followers in their social networks. Not just about that. The very important person is the one that is going to be an active, key, and engaged person that would help me with my project, an ambassador, you know, and maybe it's a teacher in a school. You know, he's key because he's passionate about what we do. So take them into account because they're going to be your best assets. This exercise, it's an exercise of communication. You know, it's exploring properly your idea, explaining it properly, simple, accessible. It's about pooling it. It's about putting it in common. Breaking down your budget is an exercise of transparency, okay? And presenting the video of what you could do, you know, which are the aspects that audiovisuals do give you, you know, like not just for your campaign, but also for your social network efforts. Offer something in return that is attractive. You know, think about that segmentation, you know, think about the product that you're offering back. And obviously there's a part in which you communicate as maximum you can, because there's a pool of context. Now, probably this is where these 3 steps, we're going to go in depth with Elisa in the upcoming sessions. Just to finalize with this, and probably it's the big finale, it's which difference will I have in those different portals that I'm going to share with you. I want you to, define which is the crowdfunding model that they use. Why is it relevant? It's donation, reward, equity, lending, whatever. Which is their geographical coverage? Is it something local? Is it something regional? Is it something national, European, or global? Which is their focus? Is it generalist? Is it vertical? Is it very, very, very specific? You know, like very specific. And even something we haven't talked about is their success rate or even the cost of doing a crowdfunding campaign, because they will charge you X% just if you're successful. If you're unsuccessful, you don't get a penny, they don't get a penny. Okay, this is the part of the hardest bit, okay? Show you first example. This is a Spanish platform that they're in a very rural region up north. They're one of our members at the Euro Crowd, okay? Eats crowdfunding. This is a Palestine project, okay? This is where they focused on social innovation, impact, and collaboration. You know what you're going to find here in Palestine, you know, something that is there, you know, build Palestine. We have another Spanish platform, Berkami. Berkami they've got a vertical focus on cultural and creative industries. Just, you know, like this is massive. You could see in their search engines, you always have in any crowdfunding platform, you'll have a search engine, which they would even have categories. This is what they fit inside the platform. Check it out. You know, be curious. As I said, look for other projects, even though they're not in Italy, or even though you may find them in Spanish or in English, and see, okay, what do I get? Could it be interesting on my side? There's an Irish platform. This is you know, just take advantage. You know, the typologies are simple: art, design, enterprise, environment, events, music, anything. They fits on that. anything related to the cultural and creative industries. They have the full support of the Ministry of Culture from Ireland. It's a small context. It's not that big, you know, even though there's one of the biggest diasporas in the world. Italy has the same. You know, so you have it there. This is we're playing home-based, Produzione del Vaso, okay, focused on social innovation. What do we find over there? Which is the projects that I could support, or which are the projects that appear? A French platform, you name it. They've got tons of areas. You know, KissBankBank, it's one of the biggest in Europe. But it's really interesting that the segmentation that they do of the projects that they support, it's massive, and it's one of the most relevant actors. If I show you comparisons, which is probably good. Bergami, even though it's in the cultural and creative industries, like KissBankBank, Bergami has raised over 35 million euros for over 10 years. KissBankBank at the same dates or same timing, more than 115 almost million euros. So it's a big market player. Okay, it's a big, massive one. But to talk about massive, Kickstarter on the probably on the gadget side. But I wanted you to check that the categories that they do have design or fashion or crafts or dance. Look at it, okay? Because there's always a big number that's just in design. There was a snapshot of a screenshot of what it was, and it's pretty interesting. Probably what's cool about Kickstarter, even though it's a massive platform, it's the data. There's in their footer, you have a lot of information upon which is the amount of money that they've raised in areas, specific success rate. You know, it's very, 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 very peculiar. And that's about it. So you'll have a lot of information that we'll be able to provide if you need it from our network. You have things if you're related to policy. Trainings like this, I hope you enjoyed it because it's what we do for a living. So, and from there, we do a lot of research. You've seen that we shared EU projects from 2017 on cultural aspects, and we have do a lot of code of conduct for our organizations, and we challenge our platforms to fulfill transparency as one of the, and fairness and the code of conduct. So you'll have our contact. Here's my email for if anything you need. If also Elisa will be following up more in detail, as I said, during the following sessions. I'm more than happy to anytime, any moment jump in. Okay, if the agenda is available, of course, because I'm terrible with that. But I'm a big, huge passionate with culture. Matthias knows it, and that's why he put me into all this. So thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Matthias. Always good. As I said, anything you may need, please let us know. Elisa and we're here to support the projects. Any question that you see, ideas that show up, please test them out, put them out, and we will be more than happy to share any input. Okay? So, un piacere. I don't know how to say it in Greek, but at least in Italian.
Thank you very much, Mauricio. Before leaving, I would ask participants if they would like to organize maybe, because the next appointment will be on 31st of October. So we have like 25 days to start, choose an idea and develop an idea of crowdfunding. So it could be really important if maybe the next week we organize another meeting. Maybe for a better management of the meeting itself, we can split into teams, the Greek community and the Italian community, also to facilitate the understanding of the discussion. and reflect on the ideas that today we talk about it, the ones of Bernardetta, maybe something about the question about Elisa, and understanding also if we have other proposals from the Italian community and from the Greek community, and start using the tools that Mauricio and Elisa share today with us, in order that when we meet again on the end of the month, we can have more or less a project, a crowdfunding project, a draft of a crowdfunding project. So if you agree, then we can define this day next week, the days on Slack and by email. If there are some questions from participants, from facilitators.
I would like to thank also Mauricio for your presentation. It was very interesting, very enlightening, because we don't know many about the crowdfunding, and especially on culture. So it was nice that you gave us some practical advice and also some suggestions, ideas on how to apply this crowdfunding. So hopefully that we will have...
I'm going to blush. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And we have some ideas, I think, from the community of the Greeks, but we need to focus more and, gather more ideas and suggestions and what is probable to be funded, because it's not, as you said, it's not only the idea, but what is more realistic and, possible.
Panagiota, I'm going to also make a suggestion because I know Greece is not an easy context to do crowdfunding. I know it for experience, but I want you to challenge also not just your local, also your closest community, but also try to think about more openly which are the expand the circles of action. Okay, that word to mouth, the communication within media, it's crucial to give you support. And also probably I'm going to take advantage of having you as an ambassador in Greece, use the diaspora, people that are away, that you may have a concrete focus on a place, on a region, on a topic. And there will be people outside that say, I know more about crowdfunding. Sometimes the locals say, no, I'll give you a hand, take advantage. It's like, you could do this sort of actions of fundraising, old-fashioned, old style, thanks to the crowdfunding campaign, and use it as an excuse, and expand it, to other moments, and send it out. Say, hey, look, we do something that is innovative, that could sometimes be testing your market, but opening to that ideas of what could come from outside. To that people that say, oh, I think that is great. I would support it from wherever I am, GoFundMe and through any platform. And there's very good examples that we could look at if you use that approach with the diaspora. So
thanks for the advice. We will need a lot of help from you and Lisa for the guidance, how actually to set up the crowdfunding. We have the ideas, but as you said, it's a little bit difficult. I understand what you're saying, but we will manage, hopefully. Thank you again.
And if I can add something, and before you leave, I will send to you like a couple of documents that could help you into the development of one idea, into the description, and to get more easily the process of selection of an idea within each group. So I'm gonna send you these two documents in this week. So if you will have a first catch up with the participant in a first session, you can discuss it, and maybe starting for a second session, you can write it down what is on your mind, you know? So it's gonna be easier for us on the first session of the 31st of October, start working on the main topic of the discussion, okay? And of course, at any time, you can reach us easily through email. Silvia has my number, so we will support you as well. Okay.
Thank you, Elisa.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think there's nothing more.
Yes.
So, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, hoping to hear from you soon. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You will.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Take care.